This is the Community Advisory on Public Safety Commission, the regular session Thursday, July 29th, 2021 meeting. And we do not have a quorum today, but we are going to continue to have our meeting because we have a guest speaker. Present today are Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Outsum, Commissioner Mann, and Commissioner Jagdish. Commissioner Monroe and Commissioner Johnson have previously contacted us to let us know that they would not be able to attend today. We have received the minutes from the meeting of Stephen Lucas is here from the council. Do I recognize you as counselor? As in counselor? Or?
Oh, I'm sorry. My internet's a little unstable here. If I cut out, you all can just proceed without me. Mr. Lucas is fine.
All right. We also have Katz present and Council Member Jim Shelton. In the first item of old business, we're going to discuss Derek House's status and Matt Diaz's status on the commission. We have received Derek House's official resignation. So we have two positions that we need to start recruiting for. And Commissioner Miller, you said that you were going to call Commissioner Diaz the last time that I spoke with you.
Yes, I spoke to him, and it was about the same dialogue you had with him, I think, Commissioner, and it sounded like he was interested, but he's not showing up to the meeting. So I think we're in the same place.
All right. Yes.
I can give you a bit of an update as well. I know Ms. Bustani has updated the council members on, I believe, the council's public safety committee, and that's the committee responsible for making appointment recommendations to this commission. So they're aware that there have been a few resignations. I believe the city clerk's office has either already issued a press release or will be doing so very shortly, that we can share with you all. If you would like to post that to your own social media accounts or spread the word any way you see fit, you're welcome to. The recruitment, typically, I think the commission is welcome to help. The clerk's office, though, I think typically tries to get the word out as much as they can so that we get applicants that the council members can then review and interview, and then hopefully appoint quickly so that you all are back up and running at full capacity and aren't running into quorum issues like today. So that's what's going on our end. The council members are aware that there have been some vacancies, and we're working to spread the word about those open seats. So if there's anything else you all can think of to help spread the word, let Becky know. She's again working with the clerk's office to put out press releases and post those vacant seats. So
Yes, Commissioner Ratson.
All right, so we're not at quorum because of the empty seats are counted, because we have to count the empty seats for establishing how many people we need, or is that? Oh, wow. And we've got 3 open ones?
We have more than 3.
I
Yeah,
think
it's gonna be tough to make a quorum this way because I mean, yeah, people get sick and have to miss meetings sometimes, right?
Well, we started off at the very beginning with 1 short, and then we had Mateo had to leave because he ended up moving outside of the district that he needed to be in. Like he moved outside of the city limits, I believe. And then
Yeah, I was just hoping that I was just double checking to see if that rule is totally set. If that's not changeable, why are we counting empty seats for whether we have a quorum?
we were told that they checked about 3 weeks ago, and we were told that the quorum is counted as the total number of seats on the commission and not the total number of people that are on the commission active. So that it always counts as the number 11 and not the number of people that are actually on the commission working.
Okay, thanks.
Is that still correct, Mr. Lucas?
I'm sorry about that. My internet cut out. I think I missed the last several.
I said,
I apologize.
okay. She wanted to know about the quorum, and I said that we were told that the number that we have to take it out of is 11 at all times, even if there aren't 11 people that are active on the commission.
I believe we need 6 people here to meet quorum.
So,
again, that doesn't stop the rest of you from getting together. It just means that you can't take any official action, and that you would need to wait until there is a quorum to take any sort of binding action of the commission. So I think what you've got on the agenda today though, is mostly discussion of different topics, so you all can proceed with that.
Commissioner Miller.
I just wanted to make a slight correction so Commissioner Mann can put this in his notes. And thank you, Commissioner Mann, for taking notes. It was Jim Shelton. He's actually from the chamber, not from the council.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No biggie. We want to have it correct in our notes. That's all. Thank you.
The next item is the Malik death. Did you all have a chance to read the article? I know there was some question the last time that we discussed it about whether or not he was a Bloomington resident. And I know in the article it said that he was a Bloomington resident.
I have not read the article. Was that sent out by email?
It was included with the, yes, it was sent out by email yesterday. Yes, yes, Commissioner Jagdish.
I just wanted to clarify. I saw an article that said that the body cam footage hasn't been released yet, and I just wanted to ensure that that's the case.
Yeah, I know the article that you're talking about, it's the one in the Bloomingtonian. The body cam footage hasn't been released. It still hasn't been released as far as I know. I've spoken to that person, and the body cam footage hasn't been released, and they won't say anything else about it. And on the, like, there is radio, and you can hear the radio where the people call off the chase. They call off the pursuit. And minutes after that, they pick up the pursuit again. So.
Yeah, because I saw, I think this might have been last week's meeting, which I unfortunately was unable to attend, but I think there was discussion about whether or not this commission can request body cam footage.
Yes.
And so I think that I depending on where that discussion led and what the where the legality of that lies, it's worth considering asking for that footage before we know, so we know exactly what we're aiming at before we take an action.
Yes. Commissioner Miller.
I'd like to first correct something I said in the work session to make it very clear. I do not agree with racial profiling, and I think that's what I was trying to get at during the work session, not that I don't care about another Black person being killed. So first, there's that correction. And addressing what Commissioner Jagdish just said, I think our goal was to put together a group of questions for the police departments, plural, and maybe that would be included in those questions, like asking for that or not, or asking for that as well, or at least why hasn't it been released, and then getting some answers that way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that's where we kind of are with that. And I've already started my list. So when we get to the work session, we can put all of our lists together as to what we want to ask. Thank you.
Okay. And let's see, I didn't know if we wanted to make it two separate things. So this is a good discussion.
When do we expect to compile those questions, those comprehensive questions for our local police departments and deliver that to them? Have we set a timeline or a plan for that?
No, and that's something that I wanted to ask you all, since we don't really have a time to have another work group right now. Is there any way that you wanted to like exchange the questions through like email or online in some kind of format? And then that way we can like edit questions that are similar into like one question, you know what I mean?
We can have a Google Drive document. Sorry. We could just make a Google Drive document for it, for all of us to put our questions in.
Yeah, and then maybe like closer to the time, then we could have like a group meet, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're going to need to do a lot of, we're going to need to I think we're going to want to talk to a lot of local organizations besides the police department. But I think starting with the police department is a good idea, probably. And maybe because of this event, that would be the reason that we decide we want to do it like first thing, right away, so that we can help deliver that question or the questions we have about this specific event.
Yeah. Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, I agree. I think reaching out to BPD one of our priority actions is a good idea. And making a Google Doc that we can all contribute to compile those questions right now is the best course of action. I mean, my impression is that we're not going to be able to take any official actions until we have, bylaws approved.
Yeah.
And all the procedural stuff in place, unfortunately. But I think this is a great first focus, and getting that Google Doc up with our questions that we can just, we can keep that going until the time we're ready to take official actions. Thanks.
And this event happened in the county. I think you said by a county sheriff officer or something like that.
Right. But
It wasn't a BPD officer.
No, that wasn't that was the sheriff, but both the BPD and the sheriff's office responded to the event at first.
So maybe should we have one document and maybe one set of questions that we would have for both agencies separately? We would ask them all the same questions since they're two organizations. Is that what we're thinking? Or I'm thinking about organizing like the Google Doc. Or would we have separate questions for each? Maybe we should have it detailed out, questions for Monroe County Sheriff's Department, questions for BPD. What do you guys think about that?
I think for a first step at organization, that sounds fine. Those are the two main law enforcement, offices that we're going to be dealing with, Sheriff's Office and BPD.
Mm-hmm.
So we can, to start with, if we divide the doc that way, that seems to make sense to me. I don't know what other people think.
Yeah.
Do you think we would have different questions for them though? I mean, I personally wouldn't know enough to know what different questions to ask them. I would probably have the same questions.
I think there will be a lot of overlap, but I also think there will be specific questions. And the more we compile the questions that we come up with, the more that might become apparent as we put them together.
Well, and we still need to find out what is the specific scope of, like, where does our area stop in the county? Like, where's the cutoff line in the county? And so, like, where does the sheriff, where does the sheriff's department line start, or does that matter?
I would assume it's city limits.
And then the sheriff's department does have jurisdiction in the city still too, don't they? So.
I don't know, frankly, how that works.
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
It's a mutual aid situation. The city is city limits, like Commissioner Routzong said. The accident took place outside of the city limits, so it's outside of our scope of jurisdiction. But and apparently the city police had something to do with it as well. So that's, I think, where the scope of our part comes in. But I don't know any.
I believe the city are the ones that called off the chase and said that it wasn't one. I think the city are the people that said over the radio that it wasn't worth someone getting killed because they knew who it was and they knew where he lived.
That was, I'm assuming I'm still recognized since we're having a dialogue here today. With you, I mean, in the conversation, so I don't have to wait for being called again. It was, I believe, Sheriff Deputy Thomas, and I think, I'm not sure, he's
I
got a
think
higher
so.
level. He's got a higher level than deputy, I believe, but it was Thomas that called off the chase, if I'm not mistaken, and that is a sheriff deputy. That was my impression, but I do agree that two separate Google Docs or two different categories in the shared doc would be good, because I can think of different questions for each, having to do with county, fire department response versus city, because it was in the county, where they were at the time, how long it was taking, things like that. And then just overall more information on the decision not to render aid to him while he was frankly burning to death, sadly. So me as a retired firefighter, I can tell you that that would have been a horrific thing. I wouldn't have been standing still. So I'm saddened by his loss.
Yes, Commissioner Jacobs. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, first of all, I do appreciate the input of a former firefighter on issues, such as this. But I think just kind of building on what you were just saying, I think rather than focusing on adjudicating jurisdictions and whatnot between the two departments, the interest of this commission should be a little bit more focused on what exactly happened. And so that isn't, I don't mean to say that we shouldn't care about the formal lines that have been drawn for where our interest should be, but if there's like the death of a George Floyd or the shooting in Louisville, that kind of transcends these sorts of, this is where I live. And so for us to be as constructive as possible, I think we need to really care about the meat of the matter, so to speak, and focus more on the events than, whether or not we can specifically do something to target it. Because whether or not it happened within our jurisdiction, it's still relevant to some of the work we're doing. So I'm not saying that the questions being asked aren't important. I'm just saying that the overlying importance of addressing the matter remains as important as ever. Okay, thank you.
100%.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Outsung, I would like you to talk about the end of policing, please.
Oh, yeah, let me just grab it here. This is the book that I recommended to other commissioners, that it covers a lot of policy approaches that we may want to consider. The author, Alex Vitale, has researched policing. He's a professor of sociology at Brooklyn College and coordinator of the Policing and Social Justice Project. And he has spent his life researching policing, policies, methods, underlying philosophies. And in his book, The End of Policing, he takes a policy area approach. And he starts off with talking about how the inherent limits of police reform because of like the history of how our US model of policing was formed. And so he kind of starts off talking about like the philosophical limits of any kind of reform because of how our system is structured. And then he actually goes chapter by chapter into different policy areas and suggests better policies. So the first one is the school to prison pipeline. The next one is about mental health. It's called We Called for Help and They Killed My Son. The next one is about homelessness. The next is about sex work. He has one on drugs, gangs, borders, and political policing. Interestingly, he doesn't have a separate chapter on white nationalism or racism. And so that's something that I thought is interesting that we may want to include as a category for our work, since at least that has been a concern in the past to members of the community, and I think still is. But anyway, we have invited Alex. I invited Alex on behalf of our committee to speak with our commission to give us his suggestions, since I told him about our commission and how we're all just getting started. And I thought his book could be helpful to us since he has done a lot of the policy research on like which policies have been proven to be effective, right, by scientific methods of sociology. And especially later on, once we get into the part where we actually are digging our fingers into the fun stuff and looking at policy details, that's where he's done a lot of work and he could come in really handy. So, do you say it, Kamala?
Yes.
So Kamala suggested that I invite Alex for our next meeting, and he's already agreed and said he's available at that time on Zoom, obviously. We are still on Zoom, right, for the next meetings or two?
So my expectation is that the governor will likely extend the public health emergency declaration another month. At the moment, that emergency declaration extends until July 31st, which is 2 days from now. So we won't officially until he makes that announcement, but that should come, I would expect, either today or tomorrow. So the indications I've been seeing are that he'll extend that another month, especially with the rise in cases. So I would plan on Zoom meetings through August, and we'll.
But in any case, our guest speaker could attend by Zoom. In any case.
Yes.
Because he's in Boston. But anyway, but he's agreed to come to our next meeting. And I've asked him, I basically told him where we are in the planning process. And, basically told him we wanted to hear his opening thoughts and suggestions on how, especially on the process framework, research methods we should be using. I told him that not most of us are trained researchers, yet we have been tasked with doing local research about our community. And so he could give us some advice there since he's a sociologist like Kamala is. And so, yeah, he's agreed to meet with us at our next meeting and answer any questions, or like I said, at this point, I thought our questions would be about approach, framework, process, those kinds of things.
All right. So, did everyone see that there is a free version of the book? All right.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, there's a free version of the ebook online, so no one has to buy it if they don't want to.
All right. We're going to move to a discussion of bylaws, which is old and, well, it was going to be new, but it's still going to be old business. So, but I'm going to hand that over to Renee.
I'm not sure I'm ready to lead that, but I will try. Let me go ahead. It's going to take me a minute to pull those documents up. I wasn't
Well,
planning.
it's just a discussion of what we already have done.
Yes,
and-
but I will need the document. So give me just a moment, please. I was not prepared to lead anything at the moment. So just a moment. Just going to the shared drive, Commissioner.
I figured since you really are the one that went over that the most, that you should be the one that explains it.
Let's see. Becky sent us she uploaded it to our shared drive. So just a moment.
It was in the email that you got last night as well.
That's correct. Stephen, do you have a way that you can share that document for us all to read along?
Sure.
Thank you. It's the one that's a working document that yeah, there we go. Thank you. I appreciate it. So what we did was just go through Article 1 and just make sure that it has the updated Bloomington Municipal Codes for our particular commission plugged in instead of the other ones, because we were using, as you see, the bylaws that the Commission on Status of Women use as a template. So eventually this will say draft bylaw or bylaws for our commission, our CAPS commission. So we had gone through all of Article 1 with the exception of, we couldn't vote on anything, again, because we didn't have a quorum, as we don't today, but we did make a few changes. I think attendance was a place, since we have a few more members, that we could possibly have a little bit more dialogue on, because we only had 4 then, and now we have one more. So it'd be great to hear what they think about the attendance. It says right now in the ordinance that was written for our commission that there can be removal for cause, and we have not figured out what our definition of cause would be before we as a commission would ask the city council, because the city council is the only one that can remove anyone or make that decision, but we can make a recommendation as a commission to have them do that, or to look at that person as opening up a seat. So so I don't know how to bring that back around necessarily for discussion, but to me, if we've reached out to the people and they're still not coming, and we've already reached that threshold of 3 regular meetings where they haven't attended, then maybe that would be a place for us to say, hey, we would encourage the city council to go ahead and reach out again and say, hey, maybe it's time to let this person go, so we can have that seat available for someone else. Anybody else have any opinions on that? I hear the chair saying yes, but so I'm sorry, go ahead.
I make a motion that we vote on that. Oh shoot, we can't do that. Well, I agree with that. I think that's a very good idea, because we've reached out multiple times. We've gotten the same answer and we still gotten no action. And at this point, it's just, if you keep doing the same thing and expecting to get a different reaction, it's not going to happen. So it's a circle, and we need to make room for new growth in our garden.
So I guess what I'm getting at, for the sake of the bylaws, I agree, Chair, is that maybe we could do this on a case by case and leave it as by cause, as it is in the ordinance, because then it gives us a little leeway as a commission to make decisions based upon what we're hearing from those particular people, because each person, it's a fluid situation. You know, it's very fluid for each and every person. So, but I'd like to hear also from Commissioner Jagdish what he thinks. I think he wasn't at that work session.
Yeah, I know that there wasn't a motion formally, but if there was, I would have seconded it for sure. I think that the 3 meeting, or was it 3 consecutive, or was it just 3 meetings missed?
It would be 3. Oh, that's a good question that I don't have the answer to, but I hear that you, yeah, I'm not really sure the answer to that. I would have probably seconded it too, based upon that particular, each person. I do hesitate to make it that way for each and every person, because there are times in people's lives and commissioners that may have, let's say they're going through a family situation and they cannot come to 3 meetings, but they have been here and they've added value to the commission, and they've been a part of it from the beginning. I think that's where we might want to be cautious and not put that in our bylaws as a definitive, you're 3 and you're out. So, but in this particular case, for the person that we were talking about specifically, they have not attended at all. So from the beginning, nor given any feedback via email or otherwise, so, other than on a telephone saying, yeah, I'm interested. So well, we got to see it if you're interested. So,
Right.
So thank you for sharing your opinion, Commissioner Jagdish. So on resignations, I think we already went through that. They have to go through, they will go through a chairperson and or the office of the Bloomington Common Council. And it doesn't have to be any other way. We did remove a little bit of the language there and cleaned it up for our commission. Article 2, officers. I suggested that we might look for a different word other than officers. I don't like the hierarchical approach of our commission. And I know that's a concern of several other people. So
I looked up some synonyms.
I did too. What'd you come up with?
Appointee, agent, official, placeholders.
We could all be agents. That's funny. Office holder was something that we toyed with, which would still have an hierarchical feel to it. And I think that's what what I specifically, I can only speak for myself. Now, there's also another commissioner or two that doesn't care for the hierarchical approach. Office holder still carries with it that hierarchical nature, because then there's people that aren't office holders, and it feels like those office holders hold more value, and that is not the case with this commission, and we want to make sure it's not. So,
Spokesperson.
What's that?
Spokesperson.
Maybe.
I like that one, because we are the speaker for the people.
Maybe so, yeah. So that's where we were with that dialogue. I like spokespeople. Anybody else? I hear crickets.
I kind of like the appointee, but that may also be a little hierarchical because it suggests other people are not appointed. But to me, it sounds a little more, or I guess a little less hierarchical than office holder or officer.
So I hear appointee, and what was yours, Chair?
Spokesperson.
Spokesperson. So could we agree in a straw poll kind of way to try those out just for the remainder of the conversation about bylaws and see how those may feel to us just as we go forward? So we have spokesperson. And what else?
I think Commissioner Jagdish had something to say.
Oh,
And,
good. I can't see anybody
Okay.
but the bylaws.
And I had my hand up earlier too, on a different question.
Yay. I'm sorry, I can't see anything but the shared drive now.
Okay,
So go ahead. Whichever one.
oh, go ahead, Commissioner Jagdish. Go ahead, I think your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to address the issue of having a hierarchical standard or whatever the concern may be at the moment. I just wanted to address that for a moment. And as far as the semantics of positions and whatnot go, I don't personally share the same level of concern. And so, of course, I'm fairly ambivalent as to what we choose to call each position and the holders of those positions. So I just wanted to tell you guys that. And the reason I am not as pressed to make a change on this as perhaps some of you may be, is because I think from experience we have seen that the holders of these positions, like the chair and whatnot, exist primarily to facilitate the discussion. And we haven't really had an instance yet where we've been able to adequately have a discussion without some form of facilitation and some set of standards, rather. And so I think that because of the constraints and the nature of each position, it's not necessarily a concern to be had. But that being said, I'm more than happy to hear anyone else's thoughts on the matter if there's something that people feel need to be changed. But to this point, I haven't personally felt like anyone has been valued more or less than anyone else based on position or anything, interim or otherwise. So I just wanted to make that clear and put that out there. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Jagdish on all these points. I also don't have a preference for what the people are called on the commission, and I'm fine with the word officer, but I also respect that other people can see it as oppressive, and so I'm fine with appointee or, whatever we want to use. Anything.
Pardon me, I'll be right back.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to ask about the earlier point. Sorry, did you guys hear my earlier comment? I think.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to ask about, oh yeah, where, the suggestion that we don't want to have in the bylaws any rules about how many days in a row or how many meetings in a row. I would have pushed back on that from my experience being on another commission in this city for a few years, that we didn't have it in our bylaws, and we ended up adding it after a few years because there were just members who decided they just didn't need to come to meetings because they were too
Yeah.
busy. And it basically comes down to we're all busy, and people do need to make this commission a priority. And what I would suggest in the case that Renee was concerned about, if someone had, say, something that was, truly just kept them away for maybe more than 3 meetings, but we thought they could still contribute. I mean, I would say maybe we could have it in our bylaws where we could all have a vote on keeping people if they miss 3 meetings, but like force a vote, to
Yeah.
actually take place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it should be in the bylaws, a mechanism in the bylaws for removing people who miss a certain number of meetings. Whatever number we want to make that is fine, but I think it should be in there.
So
A mechanism for removal, and it's fine if we want to make it up to a vote.
So it already is in the bylaw. Well, it is in the ordinance. So let's go to section 3. Members shall give prior notice to chairperson. So we're going backwards here just for a second. Section 3, attendance. So we can't vote on putting anything in here right now. But what I heard you say, if I'm not mistaken, is you would like to see that written in there. And I can appreciate your opinion on people that miss meetings. But I believe that if we put it in there, then we are tying hands of people that might be contributing. And that's why I was hoping to keep it just a slightly loose. It's already in the ordinance. So I agree that we could vote, and voting. So maybe we could put in there a sentence of,
Sorry, what's in the ordinance? What's in the ordinance already?
it's already in the ordinance, yes. It's in the ordinance that
What is?
somebody can be removed for cause. And I was suggesting that we leave that alone because it's already in the ordinance. So we could, as a commission, decide to have a Google, what's it called? We just had one for something else.
The poll.
A form, yes,
form.
yes, having a Google form that basically polls the members' opinion, and then probably would open that up for a dialogue for a very specific situation per commissioner, depending on what they may be going through. Of course, if they're going through chemo treatments, they might not have the energy to respond. But I'm guessing that we all will get closer as we go and know what's going on with the person that's missing. So we might be able to have a dialogue about that person as we also vote. I know that I would vote to recommend that one of the people that hasn't been around at all be removed, but we can't do that if we don't have a quorum. But anyway, so the point is we could add that in here, but I don't know if that's really the place. I guess it would be the place. Members shall give prior notice. If a member of the commission, Stephen, could you?
We could change section 2 from encouraged to required.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I don't know if
Mhm.
you could see me raising my hand, but there's a whole section on removal further down in these bylaws template that we'll have to address in much greater detail.
That's right.
I don't think fleshing out our details on removal is necessarily a part of the attendance requirements that we're looking at right now.
Good point. I
Oh,
think,
sorry, it was just,
Yeah.
Renee mentioned it as a reason for that. She said, well, and I just wanted to push back on what I heard her saying, so.
yeah, it's down in section 5 and we'll get.
I-
to it. We'll
Yeah,
get
I
to
was
it
just
in
gonna
section
push back
5.
from my experience on another commission that actually having a mechanism is very important, because when it comes down to it, no one wants to be the person who says, oh, saying you can remove someone for cause is different than having something in the bylaws that creates a mechanism that forces that decision to be made, is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Very good. I think when we get to the more specifics, we can flesh that out a little bit more. And I remember we actually had that same discussion in our work session about it being later on in this document that it's here. But hey, I had forgotten. So thank you for the reminder. It's helpful because we don't really need to do anything with this section 3 up here as on attendance, because we're going to take care of it down below. So are we all good with moving forward and moving on with discussion about where we are in the bylaws that we can? Let's see, positions. And I'm sorry, I can't see anyone. If there's a way I can see people, somebody please tell me that I can also see the document. Because all I can see you, Pamela.
You might be able to click on the sidebar. I don't know if you've got the sidebar view to adjust how many different boxes show up in addition to the shared screen.
I'm on a Mac and I do not have a sidebar. I'm on a MacBook Pro. So I guess I'll fiddle with it at a later time and see if I can figure out how to do that. I can see the participants. I can see who's in our meeting. I can see welcome B Square. But I cannot see pictures. The host has spotlighted yours. Hello.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Okay.
What's that?
That's me.
What? Okay.
Okay.
What? I'm
So-
trying to get to see people.
Would it be helpful if I stopped sharing the screen, or?
I think it's helpful to have the screen because we want to keep working on it. Is there another way we can see raised hands that I'm not seeing? Or could maybe, Stephen, could you tell us when there's a raised hand?
Sure, I'm happy to, if you want to pause after each section,
Okay.
and members can raise their hands. I can scroll through the video to see if anyone has their hand raised.
Thank you. And I apologize. I was being a little better about that. And then I got lax. So my apologies. I certainly don't want to stop anyone from giving their voice. We need to hear everyone's voice.
Commissioner Miller, just real quick before we move on from this, I think if you look at the top right corner, there's a box that says view.
There it is.
And are you on speaker view right now, or are you in gallery?
I'm in speaker.
Gallery will let you see more people, I believe.
Oh my gosh, look, there's everybody. You're my hero. Thank you.
Perfect.
And now that's awesome. Thank you. Yay. And I see okay. Yes, perfect. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. And I bet you Stephen does too. Okay. So positions, officers, and whatever we're going to call people, stakeholders, shareholders, the eligibility. And I'm going to assume that we're going to just plug in whatever word we all decide on wherever we see officers now. We'll just plug those in. unless it's having to do with a quote unquote board, so to speak. Officers shall be members of the commission. No member shall hold more than one office at a time, and no member shall be eligible to serve more than 2 consecutive terms in the same office. The chairperson shall have been a member for at least 6 months prior to becoming. Well, we know that's not the case right now because we're new. I would say we probably want to hold off on that. I know we have several commissioners that want to weigh in and maybe do away with some of that stuff. So if we could just wait, I'm sorry, I'm getting an emergency call. Could somebody take over just for a moment? I'm sorry.
I can't see anybody or any of that. I can't.
Camel, I'm not sure that we can see you either.
I don't
I think
know what is wrong.
I think I'm good. Sorry about that.
Oh.
I think I may have to step away just for 5 minutes or so. Let's continue on if we can. Sorry about that. Thank you, Kimmel. Something I have noticed, well, this is getting off track and I don't want to get off track. So election, all officers or whatever the word we plug in is, shall be elected at an annual meeting by a majority. I, again, think we might have to hold off. I kind of suspect that it would be helpful to hear from everyone on this and what your thoughts are. I would like to see letting Kamala back in. She left for a minute. Maybe that not be a year, maybe 6 months, maybe quarterly. I'm not sure. What are other people's thoughts? So I'm looking for hands. Nigel, you had mentioned that you at one time had reservations about hierarchical things. So if you have anything to add, I think you're the first in my queue. So I'm not picking on you. Just asking.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about the term officers?
The length of service of the
Oh,
position.
yeah, I see. I don't have any specific thoughts on that right now.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, I don't have a preference on term length. I don't have a reason to go less than a year necessarily. But I'm open to, I'll defer on that one.
Okay.
Are we looking at the ordinance now?
No, we are looking at,
Oh, the bylaw. These are bylaws, sample bylaws.
yeah, they're the sample bylaws.
Okay.
And I think we're going to probably be wrapping up on this.
Are the terms something that we would set, or is it something the city council sets?
We can set
Or our
the-
commission?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it. I think what we all were hoping for, and maybe I'm being hopeful and wishful, but I thought we were all on the same page of wanting to have anti-oppressive meeting facility, facilitation, and to have anti-oppressive meeting facilitation, it generally doesn't have a hierarchical model to it. which is what the aorta packet that is on our shared drive was a kind of about, in a way. So everybody has the same voices. So that's what we're talking about, Nigel.
Yeah, I definitely want to have a non-hierarchical structure. I don't see what the term limits have to do with it.
And I don't know if they do, but I think that they could, because the person that is at the hierarchical place sets the agenda. And
Oh, I see, of the officers. Yeah.
right, and whether it's called officers or not, the officer
Oh, yeah.
sets the agenda, and then therefore you might have something you really want
I
on
think
an
it was
agenda.
Commissioner Johnson. It wasn't me. It was Commissioner Johnson who had a lot of comments on this.
Possibly, yeah, possibly
Yeah.
so. So,
Yeah, I'm fine with 1 year. I think 1 year is a good term for an officer. But I think it was Commissioner Johnson who wanted everything to rotate. And I frankly would prefer more stable leadership.
thank you, Arvind.
Yeah, so I think just to clarify on that, what I was talking about earlier wasn't necessarily a refutal of those guidelines that you sent in that packet. It was more so just that we need a little bit more structure, as Commissioner Rotzling was just talking about. I'm not sure if it was the first meeting of this commission. I think it may have been. But at least in the first couple of meetings that I attended personally, we were very scattered in terms of what we were talking about and, who was speaking. And it just, the overall structure was a little bit, it just didn't appear to be there to begin with. And so the primary reason I believe that these positions exist within this commission is just to ensure that that doesn't happen. And part of that is setting an agenda, yes. And so I think a good way to potentially satisfy the need for structure and also simultaneously taking into account your concerns about, creating a power structure within the commission could be that we set an agenda or we make recommendations to the chair about an agenda and have the unspoken understanding, so to speak, that what we agree on as a majority to discuss in the next meeting will be what is on the agenda, rather than simply just something that is arbitrarily set forth by a singular entity. So I'm not sure what you think about that, but I'd love to come to a place where we can all feel like we're incorporating something that we all believe in.
So is it possible that we could do a Google form, or so we want to all have our voices heard for agenda topics? And I know that Black Lives Matter Bloomington, for instance, doesn't use a hierarchical approach in their meetings, which I can appreciate their way of doing things. They do everything based upon everybody having input. And it's more people than us. And they seem to be able to come up with a way to do that and still run a meeting where it's not disjointed. So I don't think we're necessarily out from that idea. It's just we haven't come up with how to make what that might look like. And I think that's where we are in discussion. So that's all I have to say. Nigel?
Yeah, I think that we can definitely, I actually know a little bit about non-hierarchical facilitation of groups. And I think that we can do what you're talking about, like, direct participatory style. We can still do that while having, officers in these, I don't think these are contradictory. I think having the officers doesn't mean that we can't also decide on, like, for instance, that we prefer round robin style for important discussions. as opposed to hand raising like we're doing now, for instance. Round robin would basically force everyone to give an opinion on something, which, is considered more participatory and inclusive sometimes. So that the person who's the loudest or the most extroverted doesn't get the most words in, I guess. But anyway, I don't think these are contradictory. What we're wanting to, I think having a non-hierarchical, a non-hierarchical meeting structure and participatory and decision-making process is not contradictory, to having officers who have full terms or anything like that.
I would,
At least I don't see them as contradictory.
is there anything else other than the round robin? I like that. I like that a lot. Do you have any other insights regarding that? Because you said you had a lot, and I'm like, and I know I'm not.
Yeah, I've actually taught on a model called sociocracy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a model that's a non-hierarchical form of organizational behavior, management, decision-making approach. And yeah, I mean, they have all kinds of rules and bylaws and processes and things like that.
Could you share those?
There's some big companies. Sure, yeah, you can Google it, sociocracy. Here, I'll share their website. It was basically created by people who didn't want hierarchical structure. And I think it started off in the East Coast in the US by the co-living people. That's how I know about it. Also because I'm into social entrepreneurship. And so it's a social entrepreneurship style of management that's and it's consent-based. And so it's different from consensus-based. Consensus-based would be where everyone fully agrees and doesn't have any objections. Consent-based is where all the objections have been heard and have been have been responded to, and or they've been decided to be invalid, because not all objections are valid according to sociocratic model. It's basically a model that sociologists created in order to try to avoid the problems of majority style democracies without having the tyranny. It's avoided the tyranny of the majority and I literally gave a lecture on this a few weeks ago. So I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but yeah, they have a website, they've got books. I do know a bit about it. And like I said, I think we'll manage, we have a lot of options, and I don't think having officers prevents us from having any kind of direct or less hierarchical.
And that is something
Sorry, I'm going to have to hop off the meeting. Becky Bustani has joined us though, and she should be able to reshare the bylaws and take you guys through the end of the meeting. So sorry to interrupt. I'll let you guys continue your discussion.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen.
Actually, if you were interested, I could actually give a presentation on it in the next meeting. Because I literally just prepared and gave one to the Mandela Washington Fellows. So I'd be happy to.
I'm really jazzed about what you were talking about, and I'm open to hearing how that wouldn't be problematic working with the structure that we have as far as officers are concerned. That's because that's what I know. That's how I'm used to being on boards and being the chairperson or the co-chair. That's what I'm used to. So I'm not used to this new way, but I'm very interested in seeing it as a whole, having everybody have a voice. So I'm really excited about hearing more from you, even if and I got the shared doc. Thank you. I'll be reading it, and I don't know as far as an agenda item or not. It sounds like maybe a work session thing for when we are going through the bylaws some more. So I don't know. So thank you. Sounds good to me to hear more about it.
Yeah, I think though, my overall point is to repeat what Commissioner Jagdish was saying, is that I think that if we consider these officers as really facilitators rather than people who have more power than other people on the commission, then it's not going to be a contradictory issue, right? If they don't actually have power to decide, for instance, what's on the agenda, how much time we're going to spend talking about certain topics, right? That's where we want to get into the details, is, I guess, how much power they would have. But I think having people in certain positions, to me, isn't inherently oppressive.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Having you frame it like that, I would agree, and I'm glad you brought that up. Like I said, it wasn't something I was even thinking of. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Would you like me to share the screen and put the?
It was shared.
All right, since Stephen left, I can go ahead and share my screen.
Thank you, Becky.
Oh, is Kamala not? Hold on.
She was in here. Did she?
No,
disappear on us?
No, she's here. She wasn't a co-host, so she couldn't unmute, but now she should be able to.
So what happened was, to catch you up, Becky, and thank you for joining us. Kamala asked me just to pick up on the bylaws section of the agenda. And I was like, I'm not ready for that, but we're managing through it. So
okay,
we're doing okay.
Okay, let me go ahead and share.
And I think we're getting somewhere, especially with Arvin's and Nija's comments.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I don't know where we were.
So maybe, so as to not waste time, let's see, where were we, guys?
It's 1:15, Renee.
Yeah, I was checking that. Thank you. And I'm looking to see if our guest is here, and he is not yet. So
I didn't know if you wanted to give any information about him before he arrived.
I will do that when he arrives.
Okay.
Thank you. So could you scroll up? We have gone, okay, wait a minute. That's end of discussion. So we went to eligibility and election, all officers should. So we talked about the word officers again. Some people like it better than others. There were some suggestions. Then here, could we talk about this section 5 some more? Or did I skip something, people? Removal, an officer may be removed for cause. This is what was the thing that Commissioner or Nija had said that she really wanted to see in bylaws. This is actually in the bylaw here. Removal, an officer may be removed for cause, provided a member or members of the commission submits a signed statement outlining the charges. So I think that might be where we would have a vote as a commission on a Google form, or however we decide to do it. But that sounds to me like it's already there. And it's.
I would rather it be stronger in the sense of having it be automatic after people miss a certain number, rather than the way it is now, which it sounds like it requires at least one of the people on the commission to be the one to submit the person's removal. In my past experience on another commission, what we found were a lot like no one wanted to be that one person because it's a small town and it's a big deal, and you know, it takes the blame off everyone and makes it more it just makes it more automatic if it's an automatic thing after missing so many dates. I would encourage it to be after missing a certain number of meetings that we have to vote to whether to keep or remove the person on the commission. That
Okay,
would be my preference.
okay. So thank
Can I
you.
just, I'm
thank you.
sorry. Can I
Thank
just
you
jump
for
in
your-
here for 1 second? I just want to clarify that the removal is only for removing somebody from officers, this particular section, not removing them from the commission. So I don't know if that was,
Okay, in that case, just forget everything I said because then it's perfect.
And we
Thanks
need
for
to go back
clarifying that,
up
Vicky.
to where we were at for attendance before.
So thank you for sharing your
Thank you.
opinion there on that. I'm sorry, Pamela, I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you offering more?
I was saying then we have to go back up to attendance where we were at before.
Yeah.
why
So
not in the right spot?
No, we
no, go
were,
up to attendance, Article 2. No, where is it? Can you go up to Article 1? I don't think it's in Article 1, but I need to see it to make sure. Thank you. Attendance.
yes, it's 3 and
3.
Article 1.
Article 1, Section 3. I am, I'm not of mind to make it, I've been on a lot of commissions myself and boards, and I'm not as apt to make it stronger in the bylaws. We can always tweak them and add them, add it. That's my stance. I think I've already made that clear. I think we all are a commission of people with lived experience, and I think we also know that we can all talk to each other and make recommendations to the city council. That's where I stand with it. But I also know that I've just been through hell and back, and I know some other commissioners that are going through it now, and other commissioners that will in the future. And so that's where I stand with it.
I think it should be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. So does it need to be in the bylaws? Is, I guess, the question. Does it need to be stronger in the bylaws, or are we okay as a commission making that decision on a case by case?
I think maybe it should be worded somehow that know that this this is cause for this could be cause for your removal or something like that, so that the person knows that you can be removed for this. Like that is a penalty, that you can be removed for this after whatever, however many times, you know what I mean? So that this can be removed. Like you can say your penalties can be this, and or removal, so that you know that is an option, so that if somebody gets removed for not attending after their 3rd meeting because they never have done anything, then they can't be surprised. But that doesn't mean that if say you have a child that's sick, or I end up in the hospital and have to get an infusion, I would hope that something would happen and you wouldn't be like, well, sorry that you're sick and you can't write right now and you can't feed yourself, but we don't really care. I would hope that you would be like, well, we know that you really care about this and it's something that you're passionate about. And we understand that it's going to take you 2 or 3 more weeks before you can feed yourself again. So I guess we can give you that. I mean, I hope that you would be able to see that would be different than somebody who just never showed up at all.
I agree. And that's why I think it should be that it automatically goes to a vote rather than ever kicking anyone off for missing meetings. But I think that the way it is written now, it doesn't even say it's required to attend meetings. It doesn't say that it's required to attend any meetings. And we're already having a problem of not having quorum because people aren't here. So I just want to stress that I think we need to have it a little more strongly worded, and people should be more than encouraged to attend meetings on this commission. I think it should be required to attend a certain number. And if there's a certain number in a row that people miss, I don't see what the risk is of having a vote. Because if people have those reasons that you guys are both bringing up, then
they can say that before you
they
have the
can make
vote.
that case. Right.
Right.
But like I said, without having a mechanism in here to force that, it basically forces one of us to be a really bad person. And none of us, I mean, I'm just saying in my experience on the other commission, no one wanted to do it, and me included. And we all voted to change the bylaws so that it would just be automatic. So.
Alex,
Yeah, I like the idea of forcing a vote as well, because that gives the opportunity in each case, for the person who's been missing meetings to make a case why they have been, and then we'll vote on a case-by-case basis. So it's the best of both worlds, because you have that provision in there that attendance is a requirement and it is taken seriously. But then at the same time, you can make a case-by-case decision,
because they may not be able to communicate. They may be in the hospital. They may be dealing with some very something. And I think that was why I said what I said earlier at the very beginning of this, is that the case by case is exactly what I think we should be doing. Does it need to be in the bylaws? I will defer to whatever our commission, of course we have. That's what we're all one voice, right? So, yeah. So whatever we decide on that, we'll just decide on that. Arvin, did you have anything on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said so far. Obviously, circumstances are subjective. And if it's a hospitalization or a tragic family event or something of that variety that's preventing someone from attending a meeting, obviously all of us would make an exception for that. But if it's simply work's been difficult and I'm just too tired to show up or things like that, then yes, then that just means that there's a lifestyle misalignment there with the goals of this commission. And so if there's a way for us to write that into the bylaws, which to my understanding it sort of is at this point, then yes. But I also do respect Commissioner Routsing's, or am I pronouncing that right, Routsong?
Yeah, thanks. It's pronounced Najla Routsong. Thanks for asking.
Routsong. All right. I apologize for any mispronunciations in the past, but I do respect your experiences on previous commissions, and if you feel that it's been a problem in the past that we haven't been able to enforce or use the mechanisms that we have available to us to make a change, then we should certainly address that adequately as well. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that opinion. Everybody's voice is important. So I wish we had more people here to also give their voice. But at the same time, that's what we're talking about. So, that's good. So we are looking at almost 1:30. I have sent Chris a message. Hopefully he'll be jumping on any minute and doesn't have an emergency because of the type of work he does. It's possible. So if we could just wait a few moments. That'd be great. I think Becky, you could probably change your screen. We don't need that anymore. We'll just pick up where we left off with that. Thank you. And as soon as we see him, I'm guessing he's probably looking for that Zoom link now. And I can send it to him again.
Will this simply just be a Q&A, or will he be
Okay,
making a presentation?
He's here. He's saying he's in the lobby. Says it's waiting for a host to start the meeting. So I'm not sure why.
It sounds like maybe he doesn't have the correct link. Is that possible?
No, I sent him the one you sent last. So
I hope I sent you the right one. Because I don't see him in the waiting room. So
I don't either. Do you have the email from last night, Renee?
I sent him the one that Becky sent me to send to him.
well, my concern is that maybe I accidentally sent you the wrong one.
Right.
I
So
hope it's
Becky,
not the case.
Becky, I'm going to send you his contact real quick so you can send, if you don't mind sending him.
Are you gonna, I'm sorry, are you gonna email that to me or?
I'm working
Okay.
on.
Let's see.
I am not the fastest typer.
Oh, I just wasn't sure if I should be looking in the chat or if I
Yes.
should be looking in my
Look in our email if you would, please, and thank
Sure.
you.
Don't let her fool you. She holds her own.
I would just like to say, I think Kamala has done a wonderful job of being our interim chair without holding any undue power over us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kamala.
Did you get it, Becky? Thank you,
Yeah,
Karen.
I
Okay.
did, and I'm sending it to him now.
Great, thank you. I was multitasking.
She's very good at that.
Some days not so much. Today is the not so much day.
Okay, I sent him the email with the correct link.
Well, it's a waiting game. Sorry about that. He did say earlier he was in the waiting room of the link I sent that you sent. So maybe I left off a letter. If you leave off one letter, you're in trouble. But I thought I just copied and pasted it. Hopefully that was enough. There he is. Hi, Chris. Welcome, Chris. Can you hear?
There we go.
Sorry for the difficulties. I might have left off a letter on that other link. Who knows?
Oh, no problem.
So this is Chris Richardson. He's the Associate Director of Criminal Justice Services at the Mental Health Center of Denver. He's currently overseeing multiple criminal justice entry points. Most notably the Denver Co-Responder Unit, which is a program that pairs licensed mental health clinicians with Denver police officers, which provide on-scene support, crisis de-escalation, service connection, and follow-up visits to individuals experiencing mental health crisis in education. Service connection and coordination to individuals needing behavioral health supports to sustainable trauma-informed community supports. So, Chris, it would be great if you could tell us how you got started, where you are now, and then we can open up for some questions.
Sure. I always really like to start of kind of that I've been with the Mental Health Center at Denver for about 14 years now, working with individuals with severe and persistent mental illness, specifically coming out of jails, hospitals, and our state hospital facility. So very in a community centric approach that we expect that we would want to go meet people in their environment and meet where they're at, not expect them to come into a clinic setting, because that just oftentimes doesn't work for everybody. So I 5 years ago, stumbled absolutely into the criminal justice system on total accident. We got tasked with, hey, we have a police system that actually doesn't have the expertise, knowledge, and skill to be able to work with individuals that are coming across 911 with behavioral health needs. So they said, we're going to do a co-responder program. We're going to start out with 4 of you, and we're going to integrate you with riding with a police officer all day. And naturally, we showed up to the police station. It was probably about as awkward as everyone thinks it could possibly be. I felt like I was the last person picked on a volleyball team every single day for the first couple months, because we just didn't know how we were going to interact with each other and what that was going to look like. And through some relationship building, through some being able to go out on calls and show kind of where our value is and where we're able to help community members in through a clinical lens and a different approach, and get those people connected to long-term sustainable supports that kind of keep them off the 911 system. Police started saying, there might be something to this. So police, God bless their souls, are a little bit like high schoolers with that. Once a rumor starts, it goes everywhere. So one district that had all 4 clinicians, all of a sudden these other districts are like, so when are we going to get one? When is that going to happen? So fast forward 5 years, and we're at 32 right now, citywide, and we have a night shift coming on. We'll round out to about 40, and we'll have a 24/7 model of clinician response in the city of Denver. Now, like any normal social worker, the second you give me a police radio, I'm going to question every single thing that comes across that. So we just kind of noticed that a lot of stuff were coming across 911 that didn't have any legal issues or didn't have a legal nexus. And we were like, why are we sending this one size fits all police response? And we started saying, like, we can do better. We can do something different. So in 2019, we started talking about, well, what would these low level calls like that are more social in nature? What if we send a civilian unit instead? So we heard about Eugene, Oregon, and their Cahoots program that's been going for about 30 years. Kind of like that. We cold called them, said, hey, can we come up there and kind of just see what you're doing? We went up there for 3 days. We brought Denver Police, 911, community members, a couple politicians from the state level to just kind of see, like, what could we borrow from Eugene and bring back down to Denver. We realized pretty quickly from our existing co-response knowledge that what Eugene was doing was just a different take. It was instead of police being kind of my Uber driver, it was a paramedic. So we brought all that information back down to Denver. And right when we had this idea, Denver passed a tax a 25-cent tax on every $100 that goes to behavioral health type programming. And it was the Caring for Denver Act. This allowed us to be their very first guinea pig on requesting money. So we requested a very low $200,000 to say, hey, we want to kick off a civilian response and we want to go to these low level 911 calls. And so they walked us through the process. We got approved, and then a small, tiny thing called coronavirus totally sidelined our ability to get off the ground in a timely manner. So we got postponed about 3 months. However, we noticed our community was disconnected. They were hurting. They felt isolated. They had anxieties. They didn't have the same service connections that they once did. And so we decided we needed to lean into the problem. We needed to help support our community in any way, shape, or form. So we kicked off our program June 1st, 2020. and really haven't looked back. And so we just finished up our year-end pilot. It's still continuing, but our year-end data, we went on about 1,400 calls. Of those 1,400 calls we went on, we didn't have to request police backup on any of them. We were able to self-resolve, whether that be through de-escalation in the moment or whether that was transporting someone to a more appropriate spot, and using Denver resources in the most appropriate fashion to make sure that we're getting people not only the right response in the moment, but also connection and service connection on the back end, should they choose that. We did kind of find a uniqueness, and I think it really was because of our co-responder unit, is about 30% of our calls that we went on were police that went to something at 911 level that came out as legal issues. They got there, cleared it, and said, this has nothing to do with legal issues. Could we call the Star Van in? You guys can come in, we'll check out. And we've kind of noticed a really impressive partnership with them on being able to recognize when they don't need to be there, who to call in the right service. And that helps not only that individual feel like they are getting connected to the right response and a hopefully longer term option of support in the future, but it also kind of redefines what police are. When a citizen kind of recognizes, hey, police calling in the right response instead of saying, no, let me do the best I can to figure this out, I think they recognize that police are trying to do their best to make sure that they are, if they're not the experts, they shouldn't be there, but they'll call the right people in. And then where we're at now is we are expanding citywide. So our pilot was just in the downtown corridor area. It's roughly 5 by 5 miles, but we're going to expand citywide with 3 vans on any given day, a team of 6 teams. City of Denver's so funny. All of a sudden they found $1 million just laying around. So it's going to be more than 6 teams, but we just got told like, oh, we have an extra $1 million, just we're going to put it towards your program. So I guess it's a good problem to have. But so we're really trying to make this a really thoughtful and intentional rollout, because downtown corridor area obviously is high homelessness, high needs, and we're going to be going out into more suburban communities that are going to have a different dynamic, which is probably our more housed individuals, but might have behavioral health needs that are just a little more hidden from the public, and still being able to respond to them in the most appropriate manner. So yeah, that's kind of the pitch of where we're at. I will tell you that we have every intention that STAR will expand and our co-responder team will still be present, because what we do realize is that there are calls where police do need to be present, but we still want a clinical lens on that. So whenever a police has to respond, we want them to have a tool that they can use to really make sure that when we're connecting with individuals that we're coming at it from, and we always come at it from a trauma-informed harm reduction type lens of how do we make sure this person and everyone surrounding this situation leaves safely, and feeling like that their voices were heard and that they're moving forward on goals that they're trying to achieve. So.
Well, thank you, Chris. I do have a question. Could you, before we go into, could you discuss the significance of having the program that's not affiliated with the police? You worked with the police to get it started, but could you tell us the significance and the benefit of not having it affiliated with the police department, not rolling up with a badge and, you know, because we have social workers that are embedded in our police department. And for a lot of people that doesn't work.
Yep.
And they also don't work all the time. They, you know, there's still lots of police calls and it's all going through the police department and nobody's getting sent away, not to this degree at any rate. So thank you.
No, I think when we started up, we were contracted for the first year with the Denver Police Department. Honestly, that's probably more because of the nature of city contracting and the fact it would have taken 1,000 years for them to get a contract off the ground, and our co-responders already had one. So we just rolled that in there so that we could kick off much faster. But police recognized pretty early on that like they want to be a supporter of this program, that they want to be a partner in it, but they also don't want to be the driver of it. They want this to be community led, which is why our moving forward, our contracting will be under Denver Department of Public Health and Environment. And I think a lot of that has to do with, especially when we're having contact with individuals in the community, is that there is starting to be more of an understanding of kind of the trauma of what it's like to be contact related to a badge and someone that has a weapon. And kind of that the response that someone gives is based on their history with them, not necessarily indicative of something that they're going through in that moment. It's a long history of someone having to deal with law enforcement, and a different approach is a more appropriate approach. So I think we've been a little, I think everyone we've had contact with is pretty surprised when we have contact with them, because they're like, wait, 911 was called and you're showing up? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in a t-shirt and jeans. Like, what can I help you with? Or like, what can we get you connected with? Or like, what is it you need right now? And so I think we've had a pretty positive response that we're not that. Not only that, but I think our training is just different. Like we come at stuff from a recovery hope-based model, and everything that we go to is, we are here to just support you, and you probably know what's going to work best for you right now. You just need to tell me and let me work on how I help facilitate you to that solve. We don't come from I know what's right. I'm going to force you into this situation. That never goes anywhere positive. It's all about being really focused on where a client is they're going to tell me what is going to best suit them right now. And it's just my goal to help facilitate that. Whatever that means. And that means, I always give my education about mental health. I always give my education about substance use, but it's never pushy. It's more of like, hey, when you're ready, you just let me know. And even if it's not right now, here's my card. If you want to call me or you see me and flag me down and that day you're ready, like I will move mountains to make sure that you get that service you're provided to. And being able to do that in the most, effective way that we can. So I think right now we definitely have a partnership with police and the whole Department of Safety, from paramedics to fire. But we're definitely kind of that fourth extension of a behavioral health response and an alternative response to the standard 3.
Thank you. I have a niece, Katie Norris, who leads from community-based models, and I can appreciate that approach a lot. I see we have a question. I think we should open it up for questions. So, Nigel, you want to get started with those?
Yeah, thanks. My biggest question is, what were the major lessons that you've learned that you wish you knew starting out? And related to that, I read that you've requested a $1.4 million expansion plan. What's in the plan for expansion?
Yeah, I think when we first started out, it really was a blessing in disguise that we had an existing co-responder team. I think we stood on the shoulders of their kind of success. We didn't have to, like, when we started off day one, it was me and a colleague, and 911 already knew who I was. So they knew my skill set going out on calls anyway. So there wasn't like that, I don't really want to send him. Police knew how to interact with me. So it was one of those, like, wasn't one of those weird things when they called that they were like, we don't know what we're asking for. It was like the police that were in District 6 knew very well, like, what I could provide to people. So it was a pretty easy lift. I think the things that we wish we had were kind of like they call it an MDT, which is like basically it allows us from 911 to know what's in a queue, like what's sitting there waiting to be taken off the plate of police. Without that, we rely solely on a dispatcher to tell us what we can go to. And I think if we had something like that, we'd actually be able to be more proactive of, hey, I'm reading this call. This is something we could go on that maybe didn't fit into the original buckets, but maybe we know that person and we know their response to police isn't great, and we can have a better relationship with them, and being able to kind of cherry pick based on what's in that queue and what's coming across 911 more effectively. I think that would have helped out tremendously. Their problem is they're a bit expensive, and as not a city employee, I don't actually have access to that. So we've worked out something for our new vans to be able to have that and kind of done the workaround, but that would have been super helpful. I think when Denver started out, we started out with paramedics and a licensed clinical social worker. Paramedics are probably absolutely overkill. I would say an ENT is probably right. The paramedics, they have a ton of medical knowledge, but I think it's not used as much as we would like to on STAR. I think it's usually wound care. It's usually working with people that have abscess from injection use and whatnot. So I think that's more in the ENT realm, and something we'll move forward so that it's not so difficult with that. And then the biggest thing that we learned is community ownership. I think that was the biggest thing, is being able to have community meetings on a very regular basis. and having really uncomfortable conversations of like what communities of every wide range in Denver feel about what they want to see out of a civilian response, what their belief is related to, partnerships with the city, partnerships with law enforcement, partnerships with other providers, and being able to have those conversations and find the middle ground to where we're at currently. The funding piece, the 1.4 million, we definitely had I think we were 6 months in, and Mayor Hancock set aside 1.4 million just based on our first 6 months of success. So the RFP went out to the city, and any provider that wanted to say, hey, I want to take on STAR and be able to move forward with this had the opportunity. I think it was $860,000 was dedicated to the crisis response, so the actual van moving into people, and then I think there was 400,000 that was roughly set aside for that back end support. Because what we do know is that we can crisis situations forever. Like that doesn't solve anything. We need people that can actually connect with people day after and ongoing to make sure what was planned during the crisis is actually followed through the entire way. That way, someone doesn't feel like, hey, they treated me very nicely in the beginning, and then I didn't see anyone after that, and I got a referral card that I threw in the trash or lost or whatever that looks like. We wanted to make sure that there was some intentionality built in to a follow-up response, and not just from mental health, but substance use, peer navigation, housing options, IDs, all that stuff, and being able to have that as a back-end support. So that's where that 1.4 is going to currently, and we're currently in the hiring phase of a lot of that stuff.
Thank you. I saw Arvin's hand up.
First of all, thank you for being here. We really appreciate your input. But I had a couple of questions that all kind of they're all very similar, and I think I wanted to start off a little bit with the president's recent decision to announce that he and his respective administrative agencies are going to invest in the police and in harm reduction strategies. And I just wanted to know from a sort of fiscal and budgetary standpoint, if that's had any effect on you, or if that will have any effect on you and your ability to enact your goals.
As of right now, I don't believe it will at all, strictly because we are actually considered. So because I'm not a city entity, I'm a third party nonprofit mental health agency. Our funding is totally separate of kind of the city funding. We're funded under Medicaid expansion. So we get as an agency, we get a set amount of money every year to provide services, and we fall under that through our billing practices. So right now, nothing would be impacted by that. And especially with Denver having its own caring for Denver tax that we can bill should Medicaid or anything kind of fall apart, that we would be able to maintain what we're doing and continue to do this regardless.
But I guess in a more abstract sense than just what on a regular basis, what are your operating overheads? What kind of funding do you guys need? And for what reasons do you guys need it to keep running?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, I think the ongoing stuff is always related to vans and maintenance of all that stuff. Honestly, this is a really cheap program to get up and running, because most places it's a radio, it's a laptop, and it's personnel. I mean, we're using a makeshift van currently until we get the actual one that we're really hoping for. And we wanted to see what a second van looked like on Tuesday, because we haven't had a second van out there. And so me and my colleague just got literally into my Honda CRV and responded to calls that way. I mean, we're really intentional that we're not getting hung up on like procedures or policies. Like we want to be nimble and be able to move and be able to do all that stuff. So I think it really is personnel is probably the ongoing thing. Our paramedic division, because they don't put anything documentation wise in their system. We do that solely through the mental health center, and that's because of our protected health information system. So all of our billing so far, and it's probably because it's the downtown corridor area, almost 95% of it is Medicaid billable. So we actually, I think the 200,000 that we requested initially, we only spent like $7,800 78,000 of it because we just can't bill. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't bill the grant if it's going to Medicaid. So I think that's one of those like sustainable things is having a tap into Medicaid goes a long way. And I think the overhead costs really aren't anything beyond personnel and just make sure the van doesn't break down.
So do you have any advice for this commission if we were to go about establishing a program like yours, just in terms of your personal experiences? Because I think almost everyone on this commission has expressed some kind of support for a program of this variety.
I think my suggestion for getting programs like this up and running is definitely making sure that you have every stakeholder at the table that needs to be there, and not just community. It should be probably 911 and the police system, because police buy-in is huge. And I think that was the thing that we learned throughout our entire thing, is that there was a lot of community members that didn't like the idea of police being a partner attached with that. And it makes a lot of sense. And if we're going to be playing in the 911 playground of responding to calls, we have to be able to work with police effectively. We have to be able to work with EMS effectively. We have to be able to work with fire effectively. And that partnership is just based on, hey, I acknowledge what you're doing. You acknowledge what I'm doing. This is how to request me. This is how I'm going to request you. And being able to find that common balance of we're all here to support individuals in the community and making sure that they know that the right response is available. And that's the one thing I do know. I don't know if you guys have talked with Eugene, Oregon, the Cahoots program or not. The one thing that kind of gets sidelined a lot is Eugene's going to go down in history as like the very first programs of a civilian response. And if you ask them who their most important partner is for the past 30 years, it's the police department. They're the ones that have supported them. They're the ones that currently fund them. So as much as we want to say these things need to operate outside of Department of Safety or police, I don't know how effective those programs are because we haven't seen one yet. So I think the biggest thing is those are those uncomfortable conversations, and being able to be in a room and have really uncomfortable conversations of what does this look like and how do we build this and how do we build this where it's effective and that people work together and it's not a, I don't trust those people, so I'm never going to call them kind of thing. That's the worst thing that can happen. And then believe me, police will go that way if they don't feel included. They will go that way. That is very observable sometimes.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Kamala, do you have your hand up?
How do we get the police to talk to us? There is an incident right now where there's a killing. Well, there was a death that happened under mysterious circumstances that we're trying to find out more answers to, and we can't get the answers. So I don't know how we're gonna really be able to work with them completely when we don't have issues like that resolved.
I think what we use a lot when we're talking with our police department is a recognition that 911 has been used as a tool since like 80 years or something like that. And that we have only sent 3 responses: fire, police, EMS. And that society has grown with many different needs as we've kind of moved into the 21st century, and police have been asked to task to that. And what we're trying to establish is an alternative response that takes those off their plate, that it is something like, you didn't get training for this. I have the training for this. Like, just let me take those off your plate so that you can maintain, going to robberies and going to car thefts and all that stuff. And that way you don't have to be bogged down with all the, what I call my favorite calls, but like the ones that they feel like are like, why am I going to this? It's like, yeah, you shouldn't be, I should be. And being able to really say like, we're here actually as a community support option, and to take it off your plate and to be able to kind of say like, hey, if I take this off your plate, maybe your wellness becomes better and you don't feel so beat up by the system, and that no one's going to get fixed and no one's going to like recover and all that stuff. And all of a sudden you're not like a husk of a police officer that shouldn't be doing this job anyway. Like, you're actually like intended to do the job that you wanted to do. And so, and I recognize it's a nuance of words, and that there is definitely some, it's not fully that easy, but that's how you get the buy-in from police. It's a recognition that we're here to find a way to support, taking some of this stuff off your plate. And some, don't get me wrong, I've talked with a lot of communities, and some are very progressive and say, yeah, we cannot do this. Denver Chief Payson, I love him so much because he says on a regular basis, we don't have the skill for this. Like, admission that you can't do something is a first step. Police departments that dig their feet in and say, no, we got this covered. Like, those are scary police departments, because no one has it covered on the police side. There has to be a change. We have to move to a 21st century version of policing, and what that looks like as we partner with community members and try to get the help to people and sending the right response to the situation, not a one size fits all. So I'm always big, especially where you guys are at. If at any point a police, it's so weird. Sometimes police just need to talk with police. So if Chief Payson needs to talk with a chief over there to say, like, it's going to be okay. Like, these can work. And so I think it helps out a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, do you have any questions before we go to round two?
I think it's a decent follow-up question to Pamela's. I was wondering specifically what kind of pushback and what kind of resistance you might have gotten, both institutionally from the police or at the city level, also from the community possibly, and how you kind of converted people, how that pushback has turned into acceptance now.
We didn't have too much pushback from police. I think there was right now there is a clamoring for when are you guys expanding? Because we want you guys in our area. So I think there has been, and I think that was our co-responders that laid the groundwork for that. I think as a nonprofit third party, like, city politics are really frustrating. The stuff I have to like sit through where I'm just like, why are we taking so long to do this? Like, this is such a silly, like, push it through. And so I think that's from my side, is kind of that piece. I think the ones that we do tend to see is the very outspoken social advocates that don't want to go through 911. They want their own independent number. They want peers to be part of it, the response, not like a more formalized response. And I think we don't win everybody over in those situations. I think what we do, there's definitely been few that I just ask for coffee or drinks to be able to go out and have, be able to talk and find common ground, and a recognition that, like, I'm more of a middle ground conduit to make sure that we're serving community and people on the ground level to the best of our ability. And how we get there is like I just want to make sure that person's cared for. And I want to take everyone's thoughts and ideas. And it was a community that were like, we don't want this in police. And I was like, cool, like, where do we want to put it then? And it was the DDPHE is where they all said, we need to land it here. And that's where we said, yeah, like, that is something we need to land there then. And it's being able to get them on board with what that looks like. And I think the community advocates have definitely been the most outspoken of, like, they want this to be like almost grassroots response. And I think that worked initially in Eugene when they were up there and they talked about that, and how, when they first started, like, that's what they were. And then they actually had recognition that, like, manning a 24/7 phone that is outside of 911 is a nightmare. And it's more about training 911 call takers to make sure that they know that there's an option out there and how to, like, triage those more effectively, and using an established system already. And don't get me wrong, like, Denver's kind of unique because we have a civilian-based 911 center, so it's outside the purview of police and all that stuff. So there's much more conversation about training and stuff like that we can go through in them. But being able to, like, recognize that we're kind of coming to a middle, and I think that's where I think that's usually where the rub is. It's like, who should be on the van and what should the van represent? And, we went with licensed social workers, only because we don't have to do mental health holds very often. But when we do, and I think out of the 1,400 calls, I think we only did 30. When we have to, we want to be able to institute it and be able to get that person to a safe place in the best way we possibly can, without calling police into the situation that we have been trying to keep them out of. Like, I don't want to be like, well, I can't put this person on a hold, but they need to go to the hospital. Police, can you come deal with this? Because that just seems like a recipe for, like, a setup for bad for all around. So, and what we've noticed is with a licensed person, we can actually, and a relationship with the paramedic division is, we'll put someone on hold and explain why we're doing it. and then say, hey, I'm not just leaving you on the street to go with paramedics. I'm going to ride in the ambulance with you, or in some cases, we just transport to the hospital. I'm going to introduce you to the nurse that's at the hospital. I'm going to introduce you to the doctor that I know in the psych ER. And then we're going to have a follow-up where we're going to come pick you up whenever you get discharged, or have someone come to your house and do, you're talking about wanting to get set up with services. We're going to have someone come to your house when you're ready and out. And really, we've noticed that it's amazing when you actually give people information, it becomes a little less scary. And especially if you're building a rapport with them, you can really say, like, I'm here from the beginning and I'm going to make sure that you feel comfortable at every point of this situation, even though it's not the greatest situation. So, but that's the only difference that we really had on our van, is the license piece, but we were pretty intentional of why that was. And that rubbed community wrong on a few of the occasions, but we're also one van in. So there's a possibility for a hybrid model moving forward of, like, maybe we have a peer van, and then maybe we have a different options for vans that can all work collaboratively together when a situation poses, like, hey, do you mind coming over here and helping me with this situation, and still being able to keep law enforcement out.
Well, thank you. I know it's 2:03 and our meetings usually end at 2. Is anybody wanting to maybe extend just a little bit? We also have staff here from the city, and I don't know if she's limited on time. Becky, do you have a little bit more time?
I'm fine to continue.
Could we?
So, but it's up to everybody else.
Yep. So, thank you. So, does anybody else have second round questions? I know I do, but I see a hand. Commissioner Jagdish, Arvind.
Yeah, I remember that you mentioned that you use harm reduction strategies earlier when you were introducing your program, and I just wanted to know, I know what it is in conceptually speaking, but I just wanted to know how that's used in practice.
Yeah, so typically it's identified with substance use, but what I've learned, and I think what we're going to be sharing with future iterations, is it can be used anywhere. I mean, we on the van, we specifically carry clean water, gauze, cotton balls, disposal equipment for anyone that we come across that may be utilizing IV drugs, and being able to say, like, hey, like, here's a safe place to dispose of your stuff. Do you need clean works to be able to, if you're going to use in the future, I want to make sure you're doing it safely. Individuals that are talking with us that are, maybe actively psychotic and saying, I want mental health to deal with my anxiety. And I'm staring at them like, only anxiety? And they're like, yes, just anxiety. And it's like, cool, anxiety. Let's deal with that. Because you know what? Anxiety gets someone through the front door, then someone else on the back end is going to be using motivational interviewing to talk with them about some of the other underlying stuff that may be presenting. Our number one calls tend to be trespassing an unwanted person. Sometimes that's just an individual that falls asleep on someone's front porch, and it's going and talking with them and saying, can I just take you to a park and put you under a tree and get you water and snacks, and no one's going to call 911 on you because it just looks like you're resting. And they're like, yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. It's like, yeah, no one's going to give you two issues when it comes to that. And so it's being creative and being able to find the path of least resistance, and working with that individual. There's no this idea of force, like, you need substance use treatment or you need mental health treatment. Like, that doesn't work. It's about finding what that person is willing to give us and what we can help provide in that, and then use those steps of harm reduction to really make sure that they're at least safe with whatever it is, the action that they're currently partaking in.
I had one other question, just real quick, on the same vein, and I wanted to ask about how, because if you go through the operator, how they tend to judge some of these calls, because if somebody is, deemed a threat to others or something of that variety, then how do they know to call you to potentially, de-escalate that situation rather than, just introduce the police so that they can forcibly subdue and then, transport that individual to like a jail cell or something of that variety?
Yeah, so they're doing triage at the 911 center based on one, what is the crisis, and then they're going through their standard, like, is there a weapon present, is there aggressive behavior present, whatever that might look like. And there's definitely some buckets that it falls automatically into a star bucket of a response. Someone yelling and shouting, still a STAR response. It's if they are brandishing a knife or a gun or something like that. And even then, I mean, we hear it coming across the radio. We're able to say like, no, I can actually take that one. I feel comfortable with that because the biggest thing is that there are safety components that are beyond, I think we had someone on the 16th Street Mall the other day that was wielding a PVC pipe and was swinging it around. And they were like, STAR, and they were like, oh, nope, we're getting more information. We actually need a co-responder to be able to respond to this because they recognized that the safety component needed law enforcement, but we still knew that there was likely going to be a behavioral health component. So it really is the key is the 911 training and getting them to understand how we can. And part of that breakthrough is also there seems to be this stereotype that social workers are kind of shrinking violets. Like, God forbid something chaotic happens, like don't send them. Like, I have seen weird stuff and I have very easy comfort levels with just about anything. Like when they're like, well, they have a knife. It's like, I just assume everyone has a knife. Like, as long as they're not threatening to hurt me, like I'm okay with it. Yeah, just they'll have it on their belt. Like that's just a standard thing. And so I think there's also, people shout, especially when you're in crisis. If you're in crisis, like your emotional brain is, I am voicing my frustration, my fear, my concern with whatever is going on in that moment. And they're like, well, they're yelling at someone. And it's like, are they just yelling about the situation or are they yelling at the person? Because I've been yelled at 1,000 times and I'm like, yeah, I can be a sounding post for someone. That's easy. Like, and at the end of the day, someone stops yelling and then we can have a conversation. So I think it's getting 911 and the Department of Safety and probably the city just to understand that, like, before I even met them, like I was doing this work and doing it without police, without a radio, without that stuff. This is just a new mechanism for me to go to these calls is all. Like I'm still doing the exact same work and with the exact same clientele that I'm historically very good at working with and very good at like building rapport with in the moment. And so I think it's breaking down some of those, preconceived notions of what we can and can't do. And it's hiring the right people as well. So.
Thank you.
Getting past all that stigmatization of homeless people or drug users, and it's just so much stigma. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Well, I'm going to ask one last one then, unless somebody else then thinks of one. Actually, it's not a question. I just want to say that thanks, Chris. And I know you said that you would help us going forward if we wanted to have a dialogue with our police department, if we wanted to have dialogue with just anyone. And so I appreciate you being willing to do that very much.
We just had someone that is a licensed clinical social worker just moved into 911 to actually be part of that decision tree, the training, the process that comes along with that, and to make it a more effective, like, I hear this call and you're not sending this response, but you should be, and being able to make sure 911 understands from the clinical side, like why these can be effective and shoring that up a little bit. So I think that'd be a great connection point for especially any 911 systems that may be involved to be able to help understand that.
That is very good idea. I know right now our social workers, I think I started with this, they're embedded with the police department. And I think it would be great if we could take them from being embedded with the police department and put them into a civilian-based program. But we'll just see how willing the police department is to give up that money in their budget and put it into a program like this, because that money would ultimately have to come from somewhere. So the budgetary line would have to change a little bit. And I know there might be a little bit of pushback in the beginning, but once they see programs like yours, maybe they'd be a little bit more willing to listen. So thank you.
Cool.
Anybody else? I see nobody else. So thank you for your time, Chris. We're going to finish up our 5 minutes of our meeting on that note. And
thank you so much for coming.
Anything you guys need, let me know.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Take care. And Kamala, with that, we're back to you.
Well, with that, I adjourn the meeting.
you.